The Urban Impact Show is sponsored by Green and Wood Media Services. Green and Wood uses digital media to help businesses, political campaigns, and organizations grow while increasing their community impact. Green and Wood Media is pleased to offer a digital media buying fellowship to train, develop, and mentor young people interested in digital media, politics, and advertising. Learn more at greenandwoodmedia.com.
Hey, 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 hey. Hey, 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 hey. Black excellence, black beauty, and black pride. Black power from all diasporas coincide. Progressive truth and regression eventually collide. May the beauty of the people no longer be set aside. May the black queen's grace continually mesmerize the millions who couldn't see it when looking into her eyes. And the black man's plight no longer be the disguise. Oppression, emasculation, they wanna castricize him. Take him away from the black queen, put him inside prison for slave labor, he institutionalized. Wondering on the outside, is she willing to ride? Is she willing to ride? Is she willing to fight for the love, even despite the fact that he doing time? Love that conquers all will never fade with time. If she don't choose the love that appreciates every life, his flame might get dim and he may eventually.
And welcome to the Urban Impact Show. Thank you so much for tuning in with us. Please take a moment and share. It's all about the shares. So really quick, today's show is about voting while black. We know that there's been a lot going on. We have municipal elections coming up next month in November. And I want everybody to understand voting is such a vital point here because literally every single thing you do, there's somebody voting on it that creates a policy. Mm-hmm. What I mean by that is you woke up this morning and when you took a deep breath, the environmental air that you breathe in is controlled by an environmental policy that is controlled by somebody that you voted for or somebody that somebody else voted for that you didn't. So for those who say, oh, well, voting doesn't necessarily work for me, I don't really care, it doesn't do anything for me, that is not the truth. If you have a job and you pay taxes, whether you have children or not, nearly 36% of your tax dollars goes to our school system, whether you like it or not, whether you have a child or not. So whether you voted for this person or not, you're still paying into it. Also, you want potholes fixed in your neighborhood? That's a policy. You want police oversight? That's a policy. You want to be able to eat at certain restaurants certain ways. Well, guess what? In order for those restaurants to bring in certain food, it has to be delegated, guess what? By a policy. And those policies are determined by somebody that you did or did not vote for. So thank you for watching. I'm going to pass this mic over to Miss Dwana Bradley.
Thank you and welcome everyone to the Urban Impact Show, where I am very excited that we are taking time to talk about voting. It's something that we don't take time in the community to talk about, but we always are big to say, well, I'm not voting because my vote doesn't make a difference. And I'm here to tell you, being in the world that I am as a school board member, I know it does make a difference. It matters. Your vote does matter. We haven't seen races like this often, but you hear of races where it's that one or two votes that could have made a difference, that could have changed everything. So today we're going to talk about voting, and we're going to talk about black folks and voting, and you're going to hear a little bit historical context, maybe a little bit of why we don't vote, what do we hear from people, but we also are going to stress the importance of voting. I think we all agree that voting does matter and that voting does make a difference. So I'm excited to get into this conversation today, and I'll turn it over to Brittani.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm excited about today's conversation just because I think as I've gotten older, voting has become more important to me, and just kind of educating myself a little bit more about voting, because we learn and we hear different things in school, but until you actually have to do it and go through the process and, you know, see candidates that you've educated yourself on or that you know that are going to make an impact on your community, I think that's when it's more real for you. So I'm excited for today's conversation and to learn some knowledge that you're going to share with us, and just kind of talk about our kind of philosophy on voting and why it's important.
So I'm gonna kick this off really controversial because a lot of people was mad at Kanye West for supporting Donald Trump and for wearing a MAGA hat. Some people felt like I know Dwana's like, And look, so no matter what your stance may be, I want to be clear. Kanye can support whomever he would like,
Right.
but you had people who felt hurt, like they were personally offended by this man's personal choice to support Donald Trump. Now, it is your personal choice. I don't think it's anybody else's responsibility to tell you who or who not to vote for. That's just my opinion.
No, exactly.
That's just my opinion. I can't tell you who to vote for. I personally supported and worked for Biden and Harris, right? That was who I personally supported. Does that mean that I rock with them on every single thing?
No.
Absolutely not. Kanye, I mean, Lil Wayne, it worked out really well for Lil Wayne because he rocked with Donald, he rocked with the Don, and ended up catching those Fed charges. Right before Don left, he slid him a favor.
Yeah,
you know, it worked out. I don't know if Biden would have gave him that. You know, or how that would have looked. I also know, and this is gonna I know there's gonna be some folks upset, but I also know that sometimes it's harder to get things through with Democrats, right? And messaging sometimes is very tough with Democrats, right? And the Republicans come out with one message, and that's it is what it is, and it ain't what it ain't, and this is what we gonna do, this is what we ain't gonna do.
Clear.
They are, right? And so I think so. And then in the Democratic Party, you got these moderates, and then you got these progressives, and then the progressives are fighting the moderates, and you know, you got the Joe Walshes of the world, the Democratic senator from West Virginia, who was kind of toting this line between voting for Democratic policies or not. And so it's a whole gambit of stuff. But I really want to know you all's thoughts. Kanye, was he right? Or was he wrong?
Well, let me tell you, I honestly think that you should be able to do whatever you want to do. I think what we do is we put so much into politicians and we learn things about them, and we say that if you go with Trump, then that means you agree with his racist ideologies or all of these different things. Let me tell you, at the end of the day, I do not know Donald Trump personally, nor a lot of people in the Republican Party. You know, there might be things they do that I don't agree with. I don't think it's fair to be mad at someone for what they choose. Now, was I all, behind Kanye 100%? Probably not. But I will say for myself, there's pieces of both parties that I take out of that helps me figure things out. I don't like to be identified as one or the other, because then that means we all have to stick together. You have to, go along with the things that they say. But I do think at the end of the day, when it comes to Kanye, like, you're your own man. Yeah. So if that's what worked for you, and you could rest at night and it worked well for you, then I say, go ahead and support Donald Trump 100%. It didn't bother me because I think there's pieces of every candidate that you can find that there's something that you kind of really like. I know for me, I wasn't quite feeling everything, but at the same time, I take it all in. I will say, though, the one thing about the Republican Party that I've said over and over again, they stick by each other 1,000%. Yeah. I don't care if you stood in front of the camera and you said the stupidest thing that you could ever say. Everyone
they back them up.
But everyone in that party, well, they might be talking about you behind closed doors, but when them cameras hit, they are all sticking together. I think the one thing I've seen in the Democratic Party is there's not that quite cohesiveness together. Yeah, it's just like, you're all out for yourself, and then we're all arguing about different things. And for me, you don't want to be a part of that kind of confusion either. So I will say that's the one thing that I notice about that party is they stick together, and I think that matters. I don't think that Donald Trump will see him in 2024, but I think there's another Republican that will rise to the occasion that people will put their efforts and support behind.
I wasn't upset at Kanye. One thing I like about Kanye is that he doesn't care whether you like him or you don't. He's going to say his piece, and he's going to stand on it and stand on his beliefs. And I mean, that's that's a good leader. You know what I mean? So it's like whether I don't agree with every decision he makes or I don't agree with every decision Donald Trump makes, but when it comes to Kanye and kind of how he backed Donald Trump, he didn't care. Like he wasn't waiting for his friends to be like, okay, what do my friends think? Okay, my friends don't want me to vote for him. I'm not going to. He's his own person, and that's kind of what he stands on. So I like that aspect.
So I feel like people feel like I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. Like I don't want to be recumbent to trying to pick between these two individuals.
Yeah.
And I think people really dislike this whole the whole way that the system is designed, right? And a lot of it, if we look and see, is controlled by money. Right, it's controlled by who can market the best, who can do it. Right, I have seen candidates be elected to office when all they did was just put out a bunch of ads, spend a bunch of money, did no type of work in the community, did no type of anything with talking to people or shaking hands, but they have a seat because they had the money to go out and spend it and get these ads. Now, I personally believe that people should pay attention to politics for the simple fact is that you never know what something is going to happen, which brings us to this whole voting law thing that has come here in Iowa. I want to talk about Iowa just specifically. I firmly believe that we should make voting easier. But for some odd reason, there are those who believe that voting should be more controlled, more strenuous.
You mean easier like the process or the requirements?
So let me put it like this. I can order anything I want off of these two devices from Amazon, right? Not only can I do that, I can register to vote from this phone, right? Not only can I do that, but I can pay school fees from this phone. I can get my social security card from this phone. So things that would be considered really locked down tight security things, like my bank, like my bank account, I can do it from this phone, right? And in certain hotels, I can get into my hotel room from this phone, right? And so I just firmly believe that we have the system that we have, the way that we vote today is antiquated, is outdated. I believe that we have to do something to get people more engaged. And personally, I think we should honestly just let people campaign for who they are. Like just campaign who you are. Tell us who you are. Not who your party is, not who's backing you, but tell us who you are. And then when we learn who you are versus who this other person is, then we can decide who we believe best fits our interests. Right? And these are just my thoughts. You know, I know people are going to have some comments on whatever they feel, but I firmly believe that had we taken away Joe Biden's Democratic title and Trump's Republican title, I think we would have had a completely different race. That's just my thought. And then we get to this voting piece. Why in the world would we think that cutting people voting hours, because number one, you have someone who goes to work from 8 to 5, gets off, have to get the children. After they get the children, then they have to run to the store to pick up something for dinner. After they do that, they finally get home. It's about 7:30. Cook dinner, eat, shower, bed, wake up, do it all over again the next day, right? So now we're telling people that, oh no, not only are we trying to cut the time in which you're going to go vote, but we're also going to cut the days that we've allowed people to early vote in the first place, right? And to me, that's bad. To me, that's making voting harder, right?
Because easier access.
Exactly. Like, why in the world, if we're going to keep the voting system the way we have it, why don't we hire a bunch of people and you can show up on different corners
anywhere
and vote.
Or like you were saying, make it on your phone. Put it on your phone. You can literally order a new driver's license. You can literally, or you can go into like Hy-Vee has like the
kiosks.
yeah.
Kiosks.
Put those places that is convenient for people. So we know people go to the grocery store. You know, people go to the post office. We know people like places like that. Gas station.
No, it's true. I've actually missed voting because the time is coming on, and I've done those very same things. Get off work, get the kids together, go to the store, go home, cook, and then it dawns on me, oh, it's too late. I've done missed the time to vote. But if someone would have told me that all you got to do is just pull this up
that's a really
and
good
just
idea,
cast a vote, then I'm like, oh, a matter of fact, I'd have done it while I was at work, supposed to be working, and would have just quickly just took the time.
Because I'm on Facebook.
Right, exactly.
I'm on Instagram.
Exactly. So I would have just went ahead and done that vote. And I think what we've done is we have made voting harder, because I'll tell you this, as I've learned about the history of voting, it's like everything is coming back to be again. Voting was hard back then. Now it seems like history is repeating itself, and you're trying to make voting harder again.
What about the history?
About the history of voting. So I just needed to educate myself, because as many people, we've learned about voting when we were younger, but I have forgotten a lot of that stuff. So I took some time to really think about voting, learning that, in 1865, Juneteenth, slavery, freedom of slaves, Black men were given the right to vote by Republicans. Yes, I'll say that again, by Republicans. It was Republicans who stepped up to the chart. Charles Sumner was his name in 1866. He brings up this idea of letting Black men vote. But the caveat to that was not just letting Black men vote, but they needed to be property owners, because they had to pay property taxes in order to be able to do this. And another reason, just from my perspective, don't know what went on back then, it bolstered the Republican Party, because you're talking about 4 to 5 million Black men at that time would have been added to that party. They would have been more than likely to go Republican, because those are the ones that were speaking up for them. And as we just go through history and we see about the trials of, just getting the right to vote, it's not until around the 60s with civil rights you see some more things happen when it comes to voting. And you even at that time still had Republicans who were the ones who were advocating for us. The Democrats were the ones who were not, until some Black folks decided, well, we want a Democratic Party. We want to go to the National Convention and have a voice to be heard. And they only offered them 2 seats. And they said, no, thank you. We're more than 2 seats, and they weren't a part of that. So as I see in history, it was tough then. Now we go through and we get some things. You see, John Lewis and those who were very instrumental in making sure that we got our voting rights, and they do all of this work. And now we're talking about these conversations where we're closing polls early, where if you're not there early, you're standing in line all day long. I don't have time as a single parent to be sitting in line all day long, morning or afternoon, to vote. And there's many people who can tell their own story. We don't have time to be in the lines to vote. So what can we do to bolster this process to attract to folks who are into this technology age? Because sitting there, having to color in those bubbles, put your ballot sheet in, to me, those are things of the past. But what we've got now is, in my opinion, those who want to control the narrative. And so what they're doing is they create these laws because they have the power to do so, because they've been voted in. And those who didn't choose to vote, guess what? Because of what's going on now, we've got these people in office, and they're creating these spaces and places where they're making these laws, and they're making it challenging for us to be able to vote. And this will continue if we don't come together as a collective to fight those issues.
They're putting barriers in the way. So they're saying like, oh, we want you to vote. We want people to vote, but let's put these barriers in the way so that it's going to eliminate some people.
Let me ask this question real quick. We hear all the time. So Al Wumbo and I, shout out to Al. We did this 30-day tour. It was 33 days all over the entire state of Iowa. We hit 30 cities in 33 days all over the state of Iowa. Me and Al was together for 33 days, just Al and I. And if anybody knows Al, you can let him know that I'm talking about him right now. And so it was Al and I for 33 days together. Me and Al, and we were all over the state of Iowa. We went from Sioux City to Orange City to Storm Lake, Fort Dodge, Ames, Des Moines, Mason City, Manly, Iowa, Marion, Cedar Rapids, Iowa City. Like, we were everywhere. Davenport, Keokuk, all the way to Council Bluffs to Ottumwa. When I tell you we were all over the state of Iowa, we were all over the state. We went to 30 cities in 33 days. One thing that we did when we went out is we targeted certain areas that were considered low income. Because one thing that we had correlated was that you had people who were choosing not to go vote due to the circumstance of being busy with work, or due to the circumstance of trying to understand, I don't really have time to pay attention anyway. And because I don't know, I'm not going to do anything. I don't feel comfortable. So we went to those neighborhoods. We went in, we knocked on doors, we set up shop at churches, at Hy-Vees, we set up shop at a bunch of other little spaces. We went in those neighborhoods and we got people registered to vote. And I can tell you all this. Nearly 80% of the people that we registered to vote were 25 and older, and it was their very first time ever registering to vote.
Wow. What were some of their reasons why they?
And that's where I'm going with this, right? I'll never forget. I sat there. We were sitting in the lobby of a Hy-Vee, and this guy walks in. He had a jerry curl. He had a jerry curl. We were in Cedar Rapids. Shout out to my guy. I forgot his name, but he know who he is. Dude had a jerry curl. We was in Cedar Rapids, and we were at the Hy-Vee that they would deem was in the hood, right, or whatever. And so we was like, hey, the guy walked in and was like, hey, can I get you registered to vote? He was like, registered to vote? I was like, yeah. He was like, sure. So I was like, I said, do you know if you're registered now? He was like, oh, I've never registered to vote. I said, how old are you? He said 43.
Wow.
I almost dropped this microphone, but it ain't mine. 43-year-old. I said, is there, can you vote? He said, yeah. Anything stopping you? No. I said, okay, let's get you registered to vote. I asked him as he's filling out the form, why have you never registered to vote? His response to me was, what have they ever done for me? They've never done anything for me. They've lied. They've cheated. And his exact words were, they gonna put in there who they want in there. And he says, if I go vote for somebody and they lose, I'm going to feel like my vote didn't really count.
Do nothing, yeah.
It didn't really matter. What do y'all think? How do we, what do we say to people?
So I get a lot of people, I hear a lot of people say that. And to me, it's like, well, you don't know it. I would never do, because you don't know that if you don't try. So at least I feel like if I vote, I'm a part of trying to bring this candidate in office, the candidate that I chose. I don't really look at it like, well, if they don't win, I feel like I still helped them out, but I hear a lot of people, especially during these last elections, say that, and then a lot of people saying with Trump, well, Trump's done, because he's given a lot of money during this time because of the pandemic. Well, Trump has done so much, for more than anybody else has. I think, no, we just probably didn't feel or didn't see a lot of the other things that were going on, because we've had pandemic before where they did give money, but we were younger, but I think now for some of the maybe 25 through to 40, they, have that input on it, or they think well, Trump gave us money. So by Trump giving us money, or, given because of the pandemic, that kind of helped their, thoughts on voting or electing.
Well, I'm going to just say this before we get ready to take a break. There's winners and losers in everything. I mean, literally, let's just keep it real. I play sports. I play games. That's what I'm saying.
Did the Cowboys lose?
I don't know, but I know the Chiefs won. So the Chiefs won. I'm saying this. If everyone had that mentality is because I lose, I'm going to quit, then we wouldn't have nothing going on here. There'd be no football playing. There'd be no baseball playing, basketball playing, because we'd say after we lost, we're not getting back on the court. So I just feel like this. So you lose, that doesn't mean you stop voting.
You still fight.
Right, you still fight for it. So I lose in a lot of stuff. But if I woke up the next day and said, I'm not showing up because I lost, what kind of mentality is that? So my thing is this, I'm going to say it, suck it up. There are going to be losers in this race. There's going to be winners. If your person didn't win, you need to show up next time and bring 2 or 3 other people along with you.
Or bring people with that mindset.
Exactly. If that vote, think about it, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 people say, well, we lost last year, so we're not coming back in 2 to 4 years. Forget it. To me, I think that's the craziest mindset because we lose at things all the time. But I don't stop doing things because I lost. I would encourage you not to stop doing things because you lose. There's winners and losers all the time. Some folks crying today because their team didn't win. So, but you get right back out there and do it again tomorrow. So we are going to take a quick break here on the Urban Impact Show. Thank you for joining us on this conversation as we continue to talk about voting while Black. The Urban Impact Show is sponsored by Green and Wood Media Services. Green and Wood uses digital media to help businesses, political campaigns, and organizations grow while increasing their community impact. Green and Wood Media is pleased to offer a digital media buying fellowship to train, develop, and mentor young people interested in digital media, politics, and advertising. Learn more at greenandwoodmedia.com.
Welcome back to the Urban Impact Show. Thank you so much for watching. Please take a moment and continue to share. For those who are just now joining us, you are watching the Urban Impact Show with Rob Johnson, Dwana Bradley, and Miss Brittani
Dudley.
Well, I didn't know if you
Janelle?
Yeah, that's what I was getting ready to say. But I was like, which one does she want to do? So anyway, welcome back. So we're talking about voting while Black. And people know that there's a lot going on in not only in the state of Iowa, but all over and all across this country. I'm going to say a statement that I think is very true. People may have voted Trump out of office, but Trumpism is very alive in what's going on in our society. Mm-hmm. Now, this show is not a Democratic or Republican show. This show, we're reaching out to our governor here in Iowa to have her come on this show. We're going to have Ross Smith and Deidre DeGier at some point on this show as well, who is running for governor for this state. But also, though, we got to remember, I just want to give you all just a few things before I hand this mic over. The reason why school board elections are important is because they control how much your students' curriculum, teachers, district, how they spend money, where they spend money, personnel problems, union issues. There is so much that happens that we don't see because it's the business side of things. But you gotta vote in the right type of school board members because they are going to determine whether someone can teach race or not teach race in your child's school. They can determine the curriculum on what's going to take place. And this is why school board elections, and people ignore school board elections every single year. And you're spending 36% of your tax dollars on school board elections and you don't even know it. Your city council elections are important because they control every single city ordinance and city policy that goes forward from where you live. If you really want to see your vote go into action, vote for your city council and your mayoral elections. We got mayoral elections happening in Iowa City and Waterloo. There's 2 black men running for office in those seats. Look them up, Bruce Teague and Quentin Hart. Look them up. They're great guys. Then when you go from your municipal, which are city elections, now you have county. Your county supervisors, right? What do they control? They control health departments. They control county police departments. They control your county jails. And some other things that I'm blanking on right now. But you got to understand that your county then sends money to your city for certain things. Now you go from city, county, or actually you go from school board, city, county. Now you go federal. And then let me not do that. Let me go from county to state. Yeah. And remember, you have state legislators and then state senators. And you have those 2 chambers. You have a governor, you have an attorney general, you have a secretary of state, and in the state of Iowa, you have a secretary of agriculture as well. Certain states have other things look up how your state does it, but other states have other secretaries as well. Then you go from state to federal. Then you have what are called congressmen and women who represent a district of the state at the federal house. And then you have 2 senators per every single state to represent those states in the Senate. Then you have the president and the vice president who then appoint secretaries to oversee parts of our federal government. Of our federal government.
That made me go back to think about school because that's how they teach you. They teach you each level. So and that's why it's important. It's important for us to know that because we do a lot of talking about wanting to make change, especially school district change. But if you don't start within your community, educating yourself on who are the people that you need to vote for, electing office within your community, that's where we can make change at on our level.
And I just want to say this before I hand the mic to back to Dwana. I went through that because one thing that I'm noticing as we're traveling the state is y'all are asking people who are running for governor for stuff that you should be asking your mayors, your school board members, your city council members, or your state legislators. And then y'all are asking y'all state legislators for stuff you should be asking your county for stuff. Y'all are asking the president of the United States, you mad because you got a pothole on your street and the president didn't come fix your pothole. That ain't the president's job. You got to know when one last thing, and I'm sorry, Dwana. One last thing is I'm encouraging people of color to run for office. But please know, when you are running for office, understand what you're running for and what you can control and what you can't in the seat that you're running for. If you're running for a city seat, you can't do anything with environmental. That's county, state, and federal. And most of all, it's mostly federal than it is state. Because the state is only going to follow what the environmental policy is passed down from the feds. So please, y'all, hear me very clearly when I say this. And I mean this with all my heart. We got to stop. We got to educate ourselves on who to go to for what. You got a problem with a student at your school? Call the person you voted for the school board. Let them call the superintendent and have a conversation, and then let the superintendent call the school or the union rep or however it works, and let it go through the process. You're struggling because you don't have a grocery store in your neighborhood, and you want to see a grocery store in your neighborhood with fresh food, right? That you got to go to the zoning committee and that's voted on by your city council people so that they can zone a level out in your neighborhood for that commercial real estate. And then they can go in and build a grocery store. You calling your state senator because you ain't got no grocery store, you calling the wrong person. Now look, all politicians, they gonna hear you out.
Yeah.
And they gonna say, I hear you. And they gonna give you an answer.
Yeah.
But guess what? Nothing's gonna get done unless you get to the right person.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stop talking.
No, I think what you're saying is really good, because that's the problem that we have, is we're not educating ourselves. Like if there's one thing I could say about this today, educate yourselves. Every person that's running for office has a Facebook page. They have a website. There's some way that you can learn more about them. What we have to stop doing is depending on people to tell us about who we should or shouldn't vote for. You know, I never have liked, I don't care what title I hold, what office I'm in, I don't like telling people who to vote for. What I like doing is saying, these are the people who are running for office. These are the people you need to go look up. Here are their websites. Learn more about them. Matter of fact, give them a call and have a conversation with them. Look them eyeball to eyeball so you can say, okay, yeah, they're playing us, or no, this is the real deal. Now, I like to talk to people. I have to see them face to face. I can't sit and look at a website and think I've learned something about someone. I have to sit across the table from them and find out if they're really being truthful or if I think they're playing some game.
Yeah.
Now, I want to say something, since we're educating you a little bit about school board members. I love every last one of you, and I love representing the district I do, which is District 3 in the city of Des Moines. And I'm looking straight at the camera when I say this. I cannot get rid of your classroom teacher. If your child is having an issue with the teacher, there's nothing that I can do about that, but I can steer you in the right direction of who to talk to. If you don't like that your building is not doing something, I can't do anything about that. But I can steer you in the right direction to talk to someone that can help you with that. So I just want everyone to know, because this happens all the time with offices, is people come to you and say, well, you're the one in charge, so you take care of it because that's what I voted for you to do. That's not how our system works. And also, you should know, every school board, they work differently. So the way that Des Moines Public Schools does their governance is different than the way West Des Moines might do it, then it's different from Waterloo. We all do things different. So it's so important to know what your school board is doing. I also will hold school boards accountable. It's important that you communicate to the community what you do as well, and what your role is, and what we can and can't do. So I'm going to say, please don't yell at me when you write me and I tell you I have to shift you somewhere else, because I have to also stay in my lane. But if I could say anything when it comes to voting, educate yourself. It is so key and important. And don't be listening to the person down the street trying to tell you about these candidates. We all get our information wrong 99% of the time about folks. You need to make sure that you educate yourself. To me, I think it's key. And I think, it's the one thing that helps when we're talking about voting and when we're talking about elections.
And I think not just educating ourselves, educate our children too. Because I think about me coming up, I wasn't educated on voting. I wasn't educated on how everything works. Like, you hear and learn things in school, but depending on who your teacher is, how do you know if what you're learning or what is going to be the right thing? So I think for me, as I've been going through this process, now that I'm older and voting, trying to educate my son as well on how things work and what to look for in a candidate. And
and they're smarter than what we give them
credit for.
Way smarter. Miguel knew a lot about, not in-depth things, but should I voting for Trump or voting for Biden?
They were all over it.
Yeah. And it's because them as kids, they're having discussions on it. They're hearing what their parents are saying at dinner time talk. Then they're talking about it, on the playground or whatever. But educating ourselves, but educate our children as well, so that when they get older, they can understand it.
So Sheldon says, Uncle, those who don't know my nephew, Sheldon, he says, Uncle, is this person good or bad? You know, they voting for Trump. Are they good or bad? Or they voting for Biden? Are they good or bad? Right? And so I'm trying to find that space, right, where I tell him it's not about being good or bad. It's, you know, because he's thinking in like a superhero type of way, right? Like Black Panther got to come fight bad people, you know, and Black Panther shows up, he's good. You know, and so I'm trying to put him in the mindset of it's not good or bad when it comes to Democrats or Republicans. It's about a different set of policy that you believe it's helpful or not helpful for you and for the people that you are also representing. Yeah. Whether you like it or not, when you go into that polling station to cast your vote, you're not just representing yourself. And you bring up a very good point. You are representing those babies that you're carrying in there with you. You're representing people who have come before you. You're representing your neighborhood. You're like, when you're casting these votes, it is bigger than just your 4-block radius. It's bigger than just these areas. Now, those areas are a part of this. It's a part of it, but it's bigger than that. And so when we're looking at it, vote what you believe is the best interest. Right? And don't let nobody tell you, oh, just vote Democrat. You know, just
we all grew up as African Americans, we all grew up as just focusing on Democrat. Vote what you really believe.
And I will say this, Black folks historically have been traditionally conservative. Black folks have really been conservative, and just in the last, I would say, decade, you've seen this swing of this progressive nature of Black folks, or what some would call liberalism, right? You've seen this swing. But I'm telling you, even though you see it, most of these people are still very conservative. Like, whether you believe it or not, most of them, and they may be liberally, socially liberal, but fiscally conservative. They're trying to figure out the budget and understand. And I want to say this before I pass it back and we do these final thoughts. I hear us telling you all to please educate yourselves and educate the people around you. And I want to speak to those who may say, well, I don't necessarily have the resources to be educated about this. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to start. So here's what I'm going to suggest. If there is a space in your neighborhood, like a library or something like that, I would encourage you to go visit one of these free spaces just so you can see what voting does, how it happens. And you can go right there to the computer and just type in why vote. And when you do that, you can even go to the Secretary of State's website and register to vote right there on the website as well. So I want to encourage you. And if you don't do that, reach out to us here at the Urban Impact Show, and we will send you information to help you guide. We will not tell you who to vote for. That's not our job. But we will get you information so that you are an informed voter. And please stop telling people that you don't have a reason to vote or that you don't vote for whatever the reason is, because trust me, that ain't it. I'm going to pass it to Brittani to do her final thoughts, then Dwana, then I'll close this out.
And one thing I want to encourage you guys to, let's not just think about voting like for the president, just voting on that level. Educate yourselves more into voting, who to vote for in your community, your school board, because those are when you're going to probably see some of the changes, the real changes, and the changes that you might feel like you're more a part of. Educate yourself on who those candidates are and vote for them. Pass it to Dwana.
I just want to talk a little bit about maybe one thing that I didn't think about is telling people why we vote. And so I just want to talk about why I vote. And I've talked about this before, but for me, there were people before I was even thought of who paid tremendously for the right to vote. From getting arrested to getting beaten to getting attacked to even losing their lives, because it was very important to make sure that our voices are heard. And so every single time I go into that voting poll, whether I have to wait in line or I have to go through whatever process it is, I think about
Thinking
every
about
single
that.
person that
Yep.
came before me and what they went through to make sure that I could even do that.
Yeah.
And I also think about those people and why it's important to fight now,
Yeah.
that we don't lose those precious rights to be able to vote, or we don't allow people to come on the scene to dictate what we do, or to close things down early or do whatever. Like, it's important to know your history and what people went through, to help us be able to get to that process. And there was one quote, I love Ida B. Wells, and there was a quote that I found that she said that I would like to leave you all with as we're starting to wrap up the show. She said, we must keep on talking, protesting, praying, appealing, and agitating, but we must do more. We must act, and act now, promptly and vigorously. We have health, we have strength, we have intelligence, we have money. Let us use all the God-given elements to win our battle for liberty, opportunity, and social justice.
That was good.
Well, we want to thank you all so much for tuning in to this Urban Impact Show, where we're talking about the struggle of voting while Black. And I get it, y'all. It's been a lot of information. Like, I went through a lot of information in just a few minutes and a few moments there. And that's a lot, you know. But every year there's an election.
Yeah.
Every year there is an election.
Not just the general.
And not just the general. You have primary elections as well, coming in June of next year. You have municipal elections coming in November of this year, primary elections of June of next year, and then a general election in November of next year as well. So please, let's do what we can to make it happen by getting the right people in place for the right policies. Cornel West said, we have to recognize that there cannot be relationships unless there is commitment, unless there is loyalty, unless there is love, patience, and persistence. Voting rights are simply under attack nationwide, as states pass voting suppression laws all over the United States. These laws will lead to significant burdens for people who are eligible and who have their right to exercise their right to vote. There must be a fundamental constitutional right and a change in order to secure the right to vote for everybody. Since 2008, states across the country have passed measures to make it harder for Americans, particularly Black people, the elderly, students, and people with disabilities, to exercise their fundamental right to cast a ballot at the voting box. These measures include things like cutting the early voting days, implementing voter ID laws, and then purging the voter list, forcing people to re-register who may have registered already. So I'll close with this. We do this show simply because you are important and you are worth it. This right here, voting is an opportunity for you to voice your opinion on what you like and what you don't like. And you are important enough for that. If voting wasn't so important, then people wouldn't spend time trying to stop you from doing it.
Yep.
So please, go vote. You are loved. You are appreciated. And we look forward to seeing you next week on the Urban Impact Show.